Good morning and welcome to today's Dream to Travel Forum on infinite possibilities. This week we're working with our destination partner, the Macao Government Tourism Office, as we explore the infinite possibilities of travel moving forward post-COVID-19. First, let me introduce myself, give a little introduction. My name is Paul. I am the Director of Communications and External Affairs at the Pacific Asia Travel Association, also known as PATA, and I will be your host for today's Dream to Travel Forum. As I said, we'll be talking about infinite possibilities and how the industry needs to focus on innovation, progress, and the many possibilities as we look forward to recovery of the industry. We have a great program with us today. Before we get to that, just wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping notes. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Zoom, as you can see, we have two buttons on the bottom of your toolbar. You'll see there's a chat function and a Q&A function. For the chat function, please use that to engage with the other participants or say hello, introduce yourself, where you're from. However, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function. It's just easier for the moderator to follow all the questions and ask them if you put it in the Q&A function. If not, it'll be difficult for her to follow the various questions that we might be receiving via the chat function. If there's I don't know if the raise hand function is available, but if it is, please don't raise your hands. There's no need to. If there's any comments, just chat function, questions, use the Q&A. No need to raise your hands. Just quickly go to the agenda. We have opening remarks from PATA, followed by welcome remarks by the Macao Government Tourism Office. That'll be followed by a fireside chat between MGTO and BBC. And then we'll have our panel discussion about the infinite possibilities of the future of travel. And with that, I would like to invite to give the opening remarks, PATA CEO, Dr. Mario Hardy. Mario.
Good morning, Paul. Good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Great pleasure to be here with you. And thank you for joining us for this last week of the Dream to Travel Festival. We started this event over 3 weeks ago with the intention to inspire people to travel again, for the industry, B2B, to reconnect together, to re-engage together. And I'm really pleased that this week we're actually talking about infinite possibilities. Now, travel might have paused temporarily, but with creativity and resourcefulness, the possibilities to rethink business as usual and create new, better experiences are endless. This week emphasizes the need for the industry to focus on innovation, progress, and infinite possibilities for the future. In order for us to move forward for this industry to thrive again as it was before, we need to take some bold initiatives into new possibilities. Try something new, create something, and innovate as we do moving forward. This all-event Dream to Travel is actually one of the innovations that PATA has done. It's a bold initiative. It's a lot of work to put together, but we've been enjoying every step of it, and we've been learning as we actually move forward. And I believe our events and forums have actually improved week by week to the learning experiences we've done. We've also actually launched today, officially, the Crisis Resource Center for PATA, crc.pata.org. My colleague Paul will put that into the chat for you to have a look later on. On the Crisis Resource Center, you will be able to find loads of different resources available to you. Toolkits to help you to move forward with in your respective destinations and your businesses. Signage that actually you can use as materials, communication plans, and you can actually customize your own also to the tool. So I would definitely encourage all of you to have a look at it. So I look forward to today's discussion to learn about what Macao is currently doing to move forward and innovate, and also from Visa and the other colleagues who are actually attending today. Paul, I'll give the mic back to you, but thank you everyone and enjoy today's session.
Thank you, Mario. Yes, as Mario said, I will share the link in just a few minutes. Allow me just to finish just with our little opening here. And with that, I would like to now invite the director from the Macao Government Tourism Office and a very good friend of PATA, Ms. Maria Helena de Sena Fernandez, to give her welcome remarks. Helena, welcome.
Hello, and hello from Macau. And I'd like to say hats off to Mario and the team for organizing this first PATA digital event. We are navigating uncharted waters with the pandemic, and the Dream to Travel Festival is engaging our community and also providing us with a platform to test some of the tools of what we call the new normal. For Macau, it has been almost half a year of living in the new normal. We were one of the first places to record a COVID-19 case after mainland China. This was by the end of January, right before the Chinese New Year holidays. So far, we have successfully managed to prevent an outbreak in the community. Among the 46 cases recorded here, there were no deaths, and only one patient now remains in hospital. We must hand this very good record to the top leaders and also the health authorities in Macau. Our government also took very swift action and made some very timely and very tough decisions. Later on, when the coronavirus spread globally, we further restricted border crossings to currently, I would say, nearly full closure, while requiring our residents returning home from abroad to quarantine at designated hotels. And I must say a very big thank you to all the hotels who have very generously allowed us to use their facilities as quarantine facilities. It goes without saying that the impact of the pandemic prevention and control measures has been very dramatic for all of us, particularly in the tourism industry. The conversation in Macau shifted from too many visitors, which everybody was talking about last year, and also the last few years, in fact, to now cries of having no visitors. In May alone, our visitors dropped about 99.5% to just about 16,000. Previously, I think 16,000 was the volume that we had in a day, or in the day we had more than 16,000 people. While hotel occupancy rates recorded about 12.3%, yes, it's 12% in the same month. For a tourism city like Macau, this means that our main economic engine came to almost a standstill. So our government came into rescue very early on. We are already into the second economic relief package to support the population and also different kinds of businesses, especially the small and medium enterprises, and to boost domestic consumption. But for the economy to regain its pulse, we need visitors, obviously. With now COVID-19 under control locally in Macau, the big question now is when and how we are going to reopen our regional and international tourism. The short answer for international tourism is we don't know. But for regional, I would say particularly what I could also term as part domestic tourism is our reopening with our nearby neighbor, Guangdong. The good news is yesterday it was already announced that as from tomorrow 6 a.m. Between ourselves and Guangdong, the mandatory 14-day quarantine requirement will be removed. So meaning to say that we can, Macau people can travel to the mainland, within Guangdong province, and then Guangdong people can also come to Macau. So we are bracing ourselves for a phased reopening. So most probably, as I said, it will start from Guangdong, and we were waiting for Hong Kong, but then obviously that would need to wait a little while now. And afterwards, obviously, we would be looking at perhaps corridors with our nearby countries and regions, and then further afield. So such reopening is expected to involve mutual recognition of health codes, of COVID-19 tests, and prevention and control measures. Well, I would say that, with the signs of the ease of border crossings restrictions between ourselves and Guangdong province already appearing, obviously we are at the same time, we are cooperating with Hong Kong, particularly hoping for certainly gradual and phased reopening. At this particular juncture, we are also cooperating in Hong Kong in terms of operating a special corridor between the international airport in Hong Kong and also Macau, so that our residents and also some of those who were stuck in Macau for some time can use this particular corridor to leave our city or come back to Macau. But this is temporary and again, also not for visitor flows. So now with so many uncertainties lingering still in the air, our main focus has been first and foremost to prepare our city well to receive visitors. So we are restarting tourism activities by targeting local residents. And we've just launched since the end of last month what we call the Macao Ready Go, meaning to say that we want to tell people that Macao is ready to go. The program challenged our travel trade to rethink their products and services and also their different offers. So now they are aiming their first products at residents. Residents are not their traditional target, so it is also a lot of challenges for our local trade to work out the scheme. So we've introduced an e-platform to help tourism businesses, particularly the small and medium enterprises, to promote their special deals and their packages, like dining, spa treatments, staycations, and more. We also launched 15 local tours, several of them out-of-the-box itineraries, which, although they are coordinated and also funded by the government, we have created and implemented asked the travel trade to implement them. And we'd say that these would kill two birds in one stone because we're providing business to the local travel trade, and also we're providing an opportunity for them to reinvent their services. But at the same time, we give kind of like holiday at home experiences to our city's locked residents. So when conditions allow, these can also be scaled up for our visitors as well. So in the meantime, we will continue to work on a Macau comeback plan in accordance to the progress of border reopening in the regional and international markets. So when conditions allow, we will also move ahead with a broader plan to revive Macau's tourism industry. So although we definitely would need to do it by stages, we will roll out promotion activities, special offers like half-day tours for overnight guests, and also a lot of recovery schemes providing preferential measures for transportation networks such as airlines, among others. However, as we still continue to dream to travel, we know that tourism will never be the same after this very difficult episode. Visitors will prioritize health over tourism attractions and experiences. While the schedule to resume traveling is not on our hands alone, we have been working hard to ensure the safety of the destination and also explore the infinite possibilities available to revive our industry. At the same time, we shall collaborate together with our partners from PATA and also around the world to ensure a responsible reopening of tourism and a sustainable development of the industry in what we call the new normal. So thank you very much, and we look forward to working together in the days ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helena. Please stay here. With that, I would like to, as we're going to go right into our fireside chat. So with that, I would like to invite back with us from over the past, this is our third time with us now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the presenter from BBC's The Travel Show, Ms. Carmen Roberts. Over to you, Carmen.
Thank you, Paul. Hi, Helena. Great to see you again, and really interesting to hear what's been happening in Macau. You've been heading up the Macao Government Tourism Office for some years now. Can anything prepare you for a crisis like this?
Well, we, besides doing heading the Macao Government Tourism Office, we also had the Tourism Crisis Management Office. So the previous half year, we've been working more on reacting to situations and also crisis management more than doing our normal tourism promotion. I guess it's really, well, as today we were talking about infinite possibilities, I guess it's not just infinite possibilities for promoting tourism, it's also infinite possibilities to learn from different situations and react to different situations and try to make the best out of the situation. It's not easy. It has been a very volatile 6 months, but I guess, there's always something you learn from different situations.
Yes, definitely. That's what I'm hearing more and more. There's a lot of positives to come out of this. I'm interested to hear about Macao Ready Go,
Right.
your new initiative. How have priorities changed? And I guess let's start with, the travel trade in Macau, how have they met with these challenges? What are these challenges for them? Because I guess there must be a difference in interests, in spending power. What's been the reaction from the other side?
Well, I guess the initial reaction is, okay, well, yes, we're in it together. And yes, I guess the travel trade has stuck together very, very well. But then no one would have realized, or no one would have foreseen such a very prolonged crisis. We have been through SARS in 2003, but that was about 3.5 months. And then we were back to normal. But this time it was like, already 6 months, and then, when are we getting back to normal? So it is really a lot of anxiety in the travel trade. So I would say that, there's still a lot of, although obviously yesterday we already heard some good news coming, but then still they are, we are still very, very cautious. It's like working more with the health authorities than with the travel trade at this point in time. But yes, we started the Macau Ready Go preparations some months ago. The initial thinking was that, okay, we have to prepare ourselves just like what we did with SARS. We have to get ourselves ready to go whenever the borders reopen. But then the borders did not open for some time. So what happened was that, instead of having Macau Ready Go as a platform or as an initiative for the international travel trade or for international travel, we shifted the focus to the local residents, in the last couple of months. So in mid-June, we launched first the platform, which is an e-platform with all the different offers that the hotels or the small businesses, the restaurants, whatever, would like to give. Initially, that was for the visitors, but now we shifted everything for the residents. And then eventually visitors can also utilize those kind of offers. And then we decided to also launch a program of Macau Ready Go local tours, which are aimed at staycations of people staying within Macau and using the Macau facilities. We're then now also planning for what we call Macau Ready Go, staying in hotel offers for August, because still a lot of people would not be able to travel. So probably staying at home, staying at the hotels would be a good a good alternative. So everything has kind of like shifted our focus to locals rather than visitors, which we're so used to before. And serving residents is a very different ball game altogether. One, they would be a lot more knowledgeable about what the local environment is all about and what you have to offer. So you have to give them something different than your normal visitation or your normal heritage sites. And also you have to give them something to lure them out of their homes or out of their other engagements. So yes, that was quite a learning curve.
What sort of things have you been enticing the local residents with?
Well, I guess, it's not just going to shows, it's not just going to heritage sites. We give them things like, okay, back of the house experiences, like going to, people have seen House of Dancing Water, but then have you seen the back of the house operation? So we bring them to things like these. A lot of local residents would never have seen, the top suites in the hotels in Macau. So we bring them to see all the very luxurious things. We give them very special offers to dine in the Michelin star restaurants. And then we also bring them to see things like, well, have you seen the operation of Air Macau, say, for example, so they open up their operation building so that people can see how flight routes are being planned, or maybe, they can have, interaction direct with the air hostesses or the captains of the airplanes, things like that. And so we're giving all these, out of the box kinds of, of things for local residents to go to, because otherwise, well, why do you need to go to, and join a tour?
Yeah, well, they all sound really interesting. As an international visitor, I would be keen to do any of those. So this could be other offers and experiences that could transfer to the international market, surely.
True. I guess we have launched 15 tours. All of these, some things that we need to do, very, very differently from before. And we are actually looking at possibilities of commercializing some of these tours when the borders reopen in a broader sense. And now they're also planning probably another, 6 to 10 routes. So yes, we believe that when the borders reopen, some of these can actually be utilized as new products and services for the tourism industry.
Great. It's a good sign about Guangdong not
Yes.
having to quarantine. Yvonne Chang has sent a question in about this, just to clarify. Could you clarify when that will happen?
Okay, yes, we just got news yesterday. It was announced yesterday that as from 6 a.m. tomorrow, our time, so from people from Macau going into the Guangdong area, but they need to stay within 9 cities, which we call the Greater Bay Area. So we don't need to go through that 14-day quarantine anymore. But then obviously you have to have your COVID-19 tests done, and they can be done at a fee in Macau, not a very substantial fee though. And then from Guangdong people, they've actually, we've never required a mandatory 14-day requirement from Guangdong anyways. So as long as they have the tests, we have our health codes exchanged between ourselves and Guangdong. So they can also travel to Macau without having to go through a 14-day quarantine. And when they go back, also no quarantine for them. So literally that means to say an easing up of border crossings between ourselves and the Guangdong province, which helps tourism businesses because we were, as I was talking about the occupancy rates and also the visitor numbers, I guess for a tourism city like us, we are badly in need of some form of tourism activity crossing borders.
Yes, and I'm hugely fascinated by this technology with mobile phones that's being used in Macau and parts of China that can detect where you've been and if you've come in contact with someone who has COVID. This is hugely fascinating for me. And can this sort of technology be harnessed for the travel and tourism industry going forward, do you think?
Well, I guess for some people, it's a little bit daunting. They kind of like, know exactly where you have been. On the Macau side, we have not gone so far. We have actually, the exchange would be, well, we won't track exactly where you have been in Macau, so don't be worried about that. But to enter certain facilities, say, for example, of course, crossing borders, you need the health code. So you have to have your health code in, a green color, which means, you can freely travel. And but then, for now, what we would need to implement with that, would be that going into casinos in Macau, as from tomorrow, you would also need to show your green health code. And then if you go into hotels, you would also need to show that green health code as well. So it is a way to make sure that, we're kind of safe, we're safeguarding the visitors as well as the local residents and also all the workers in the tourism industry. So that is a way to also responsibly resume tourism traffic.
Great. A question has been asked about your international airport from Jose has asked, is the international airport open? Do you have any?
It is open. It has never been closed. But then obviously we cannot accept transfer, transit flights though. And then the issue is also because of so many different controls in different parts of the world. So there has not been a lot of airline movements. That is true. The airport has not been closed, but as I said, it is for commercially, it is not viable for a lot of passenger traffic though. What has been going on very robustly has been, cargo traffic. So most of the planes nowadays are carrying cargo rather than passengers. So I hope that very soon we will see more passengers coming in. But then yes, the airport has never been closed.
So Melody Palomares, I'm hoping I've pronounced that correctly, Melody. She's asking about MICE, MICE tourists. What can you provide for complementary groups of clients and travel agents that can push Macau?
Well, we have always had not just ourselves. We have been, the tourism office has been working more on the incentive businesses, whereas we have another government department called the Investment and Promotion Institute, which we work very, very closely with. They also have packages, for MICE businesses. So they haven't told us that, for after COVID-19 recovery, what are the additional offers that they would have, but what I understand that what they have already in place is also quite a good offer for MICE businesses. So I guess right now it's really not not just what kinds of offers we can give. It's more importantly, okay, when can we have traveling between ourselves and the international market, and also particularly sometimes also very importantly is not just flying directly into Macau, but also into our nearby areas, particularly Hong Kong, which has also always served as a very important hub for for people traveling to Macau as well. So I guess it's not just ourselves, but we would need safe traveling between ourselves and other neighboring areas as well.
Okay, so with the flights, when they do eventually come in, will you be monitoring people? Will there be what will entry look like coming into Macau? Will you be tested on arrival? Will there be a certain holding room for travelers?
Okay, right now what is required is that for passenger flights into Macau, in order to board the flight itself from origin, you have to show a valid COVID-19 test. So that is also we understand that is readily available in some places, but in certain other places, I know in Japan it's not readily available for anybody. So so we would have to work with the health authorities on certain kinds of exemptions. So we have to go market by market. It is it's not like, okay, we just open our borders and then that's it. You can come and anytime tomorrow. There are certain measures that we would need to work on, and then we and there's a lot of work still to be done in order to reopen international travel.
Yeah, so many new challenges that this has thrown open. It's really fascinating, and we can continue this more in our panel discussion. So thank you, Helena. So stay on the line, and we'll welcome our fellow panelists. And I'm quite excited by this week because we have an all-female panel, which in these types of forums is a very rare occurrence. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. And while travel might have been paused, what we're seeing is coming out of this crisis is creativity and resourcefulness, and the possibilities to rethink business as usual and create new and better experiences are seemingly endless. So let's welcome Maaike Steinberg from Visa. She's the General Manager for Hong Kong and Macau. Welcome, Maaike.
Hi, Carmen. Hi.
And I understand Mario Hardy, Dr. Mario Hardy will also join us on the panel. So, oh gosh, I've just realized Natalia from the UNWTO. So it's not an all-female panel. Sorry about that. But anyway, Natalia was meant to be joining us from Spain, and I'm not sure quite what's happened there. It is very early in the morning, so she could be forgiven. But welcome, Mario. I look forward to hearing all about the Crisis Resource Centre as well from PATA. But let's start with Maaike, because we've heard a lot about what's happening in Macau. Maaike, I guess a lot of online businesses haven't fared too badly in this crisis. What's Visa been doing to improve its business, and what's been happening in your area?
Yeah, thank you so much, Carmen, and thank you, Paul and Mario of PATA, for having me on this panel today. It was great to hear Elena talk about some of the challenges that Macau had and how they've been really making that into opportunities. And as you know, we started with COVID first in Hong Kong, also at the end of January. But even before that, there already had been quite some disruption in Hong Kong. So what was interesting to see that as a country, we were already trying to think, how can we actually make opportunities out of challenges? And I think one of the biggest things that has come out of that as a consequence has been digitization and contactless. You were talking earlier around technology and internet opportunities, but what we have seen is that on the one hand, you obviously have, from a hygiene and safety perspective, the fact that people don't want to touch anything anymore. And I think if you look at the travel and you look at the hotels, a lot of people are already making cases for no longer having mini bars or amenities that people can touch, but want the experience to kind of be contactless. And I think that's also what we have seen in Hong Kong, that, you know, payments increasingly and interactions between people were contactless. Now, whilst we at Visa have been promoting contactless payments already for quite a long time, it has been interesting to see how that contactless has also evolved into more online commerce. So as Elena already mentioned, particularly in Macau, we've also been working on how we can enable a lot of small merchants to bring their business from offline to online, so that they can not just benefit from domestic consumption, but that they can also benefit from international, let's say, tourists that would be interested in buying some of their stuff, and they can do that now online. And in particularly in the digitization of commerce, and you look at Macau, we really have seen that, you know, in the past, culturally savvy travelers, they are interested in trying smaller and local restaurants and even the diners, and that have actually adopted digitization or accept digital payments have actually increased their revenues, because people tend to spend more if they can pay electronically. Maybe I'll just pause there.
That's really fascinating. And do you find that with all this e-commerce and contactless payments, I know that in China you can pay on your phones through, you know, do you think that it's more prevalent in Asia? Or do you think it's more difficult to roll this out through Europe? Because I know Europe, you must be watching Europe very closely now, because they seem to be opening up with travel. Have you found that with your studies in Visa?
Well, I think if you look at contactless adoption across Asia Pacific, it has grown tremendously over the last few years. Just to give you some stats for Hong Kong, we were in single digits 4 years ago, and we are in high double digits at the moment. So we have been seeing a steady increase in contactless. Same goes for Macau, by the way, where gradually people are becoming more accustomed to contactless. But I think what has also significantly accelerated this has been e-commerce. So not just that people have been able to pay with their phone, but also having to be forced to do more online purchases. And that's not just an Asian phenomenon, it's a global phenomenon. And if you just look at the Hong Kong market and Macau market, we have really seen for the first time during the last 6 months, a lot new first-time buyers as well as first-time sellers online. And I think that is slightly different maybe from other countries who may have been doing that for much longer. So Asia Pacific has a very high adoption of contactless, but there is still a lot of room to grow e-commerce.
Great. And Mario, let's hear from you. Are you watching, is PATA watching Europe very closely? They've opened their borders, I think, from July, 1st of July. What have you been watching and what have you been seeing, and have you been taking notes or lessons learned?
I think every destination in Asia is actually watching Europe very closely at the moment, since the reopening on July 1st. As all of us know, you know, the Northern Europeans normally travel to the southern of Europe for their summer holidays, and they travel in masses. In masses, large groups of them have been traveling already. A lot less than probably previous years, but still in large numbers. And so we're quite keen to see if the travel, the travel processes and protocols have been put in place between the respective countries in Europe. Are they effective? Are they working? Are they doing the job as they're meant to be? Are there new cases actually, or number of cases in the respective destinations increasing because of the tourists?
Yeah.
Those are all the questions that we're wondering. If everything moves positively, then I think it will give confidence to some destinations in Asia to probably do a little bit of soft opening up to certain markets moving forward. If on the contrary, they're actually not proven as effective, then I think it will actually sadly push back the opening of many destinations moving forward. At the end of the day, we all want safety for our citizens and our residents. That's the first priority of each country. But equally, economically, we do need travel and tourism. So achieving that balance between the two is really, really difficult for heads of states, for destinations, for tourism ministries, health ministries, to really see what is actually working. And I think what this entire situation is around the world is a bit of a trial and error. Every country, every destination have introduced protocols that are either similar or slightly different in different places. And we're kind of looking at each other's over our shoulder and see, well, theirs working better than others? We're also very fascinated by Vietnam, who has successfully been reopened now for the longest around the world, has practically been COVID-free, very, very few cases, and seems to be going on with their life almost as normal. So there's a lot of interest in understanding what have they done differently than other destinations, and are there lessons to be learned in what they've done that we could replicate here in the rest of Asia?
I'm not familiar with the situation in Vietnam. Are they accepting tourists from all around Asia, or is there
no,
a certain travel bubble?
Yeah, not at the moment. They've announced yesterday that they will be reopening flights between China, and I'm assuming it's only certain parts of China, into Vietnam. And they are gradually reopening to their international borders again. But domestic travel has boomed enormously. The moment they opened, everybody just wanted to get out of the cities and go back to the countryside and etc. and vice versa. So the domestic tourism in Vietnam has been grown successfully. They already had a very large domestic tourism before the crisis, but now somehow it's just almost like doubled. But the reopening of Vietnam is also something we'll be looking very closely to see how successful their measures are in place, if they're able to keep down their number of cases to practically zero.
That's really interesting about Vietnam. And Helena, are there certain countries that Macau is watching very closely? I noticed Mario said that there's a lot of interest in getting out of the cities. And for me, Macau is very much a city destination. Have you found that that's the case in Macau as well? And who else are you watching?
Well, to be honest, we're watching everybody. We have watched the news as to what different places are doing, and because we are also in need to assess exactly, where are the places that we eventually can open to, or how to and how to see exactly what they are doing. So yes, we're watching practically everybody else, trying to see what kinds of packages they're coming out, what kinds of promotions, or what are the messages that are going out from the different destinations. And at the same time, we are also looking at obviously very, very closely with our neighboring regions, because we believe that those would be the first to reopen for Macau, or between ourselves and them. So yes, the short answer is we have to learn from everybody else, and there is no one example or no one particular I would say no one particular practice which is which kind of like is a cure for all. So I guess we have to be very, very attentive to what happens next.
Micah, getting back to the contactless payment that Visa, is there going to be a health implication with the contactless? Is there talk of that, or is it too early to speculate?
Yeah, I don't think that is something that Visa is actively involved in. I think that the trend is that obviously we will be going more and more contactless worldwide as we kind of try and deal with this new normal. And actually, we had seen that this trend had already started previously. And actually, when we talk about the new normal, it is effectively an acceleration of a trend that will probably take many years to come to fruition, which is now being compacted in a few months. If we take, for example, a look at Macau, so we've seen a significant growth in digital payments in Macau since the pandemic, and really the Macau government has really done an amazing job in containing the spread. But we've also seen Macau people be a little bit more conservative in their approach to consumption, and seen a slight drop in face-to-face transactions, but we're seeing a growth in e-commerce and in spend. And obviously that creates opportunities as well, because we want to make sure that during this pandemic, obviously people stay physically healthy and safe, but we also want to make sure that their businesses and the economy stay healthy. And that is why I think if you look at where what the other panelists were also talking about, at the moment we are looking at how we can ensure that there is domestic tourism, whilst we keep a very clear eye on which corridors are opening up going forward, and trying to look at different ways. And I think what the Macau Tourism Board has been doing is very, very interesting with organizing the tours, but in particularly also the back of house experiences. And that is also something that we have seen at Visa, that increasingly people want a personalized experience. So when you look at using your travel credit card, people don't want the standard kind of dining offers, but people want something that at least gives the perception that it's highly personalized, that it's unique, that it's tailor-made, and that it's value added, and increasingly also purpose-led. So people want to support local communities, want to support education. And I think it's great to see that the Macau Tourism Board and across the globe, we are seeing people looking at new ways at addressing domestic consumption. Now, obviously, Hong Kong and Macau are pretty small cities. So when people in Vietnam rush out to kind of go travel domestically, unfortunately, in Hong Kong and Macau, we can't go very far. Which means that it's even more important to be creative and to think of different ways of engaging with consumers and domestic travelers.
Mario, have you seen any other examples of this creativity and thinking outside of the box in terms of tourism around Asia with your other travel partners?
Yes, I've seen a lot of creativity here in Thailand, but across the region of businesses that have pivoted their business online and trying to find new ways to obviously generate their income to make sure the survival of their business. A survey that PATA conducted back in April, impact survey of SMEs, small businesses across Asia, which was about 500 people who responded, showed that already at that time, 15% of businesses had shut down permanently. And with other 42% of the businesses only having money for 2 to 4 months, which means by now the majority of them would have already been shut down. So a lot of businesses have been looking at different ways to create new services. So I'll give you an example in Indonesia of a business that did something quite creative. They're essentially, I would say, sort of a competitor to Airbnb, but local in their marketplace in Indonesia, a company called Travelio. who offers short, medium, and long stays. That's probably the difference that they have. Competitive advantage is that a lot of the people who actually rent to them would actually stay for extensive period of time. So they could be workers coming in for extensive period of time, people working on contracts, and etc. But what they've realized is that 45% of all the accommodation they had on their platform were already occupied at the beginning of the crisis. All of these people needed services, cleaning the place, sanitizing as before they move in or when they move out, needing grocery deliveries, pharmacy deliveries, and etc. And I realized that maybe they can actually develop an application to offer these services to the tenants, which has actually picked up very rapidly, became quite successful. And what happened is that other residents of other businesses realized that, hey, they would like to have that too. And so their businesses kind of actually, really went well at a period of time where others actually were just joining in. So it almost becomes like a new business model as part of a service. So that's just one example. Here in Thailand, also the protocols were implemented quite early in terms of QR codes at entry and exit of different restaurants and spas and public places, shopping malls, and etc. The wearing a mask is quite common here for the rest of us in Asia, so it's it's not really new, but now it's actually trendy. I've seen a lot of fancy masks coming out with prints on it, and we actually make it quite attractive. So ladies would have one that actually matched their dress for the day. Some of our staff have actually, families have been designing some really nice ones too. A lot of new services and new business, people adapting and finding new ways. Very early again, when we came out of lockdown, one restaurant here in Bangkok came out with the fiberglass divisions, partitions at restaurants where people could eat out. They were the only restaurant actually opened. They were sold out for almost a month. And now it's actually quite common. So, and things are getting relaxed a little bit. But so a lot of innovation at the beginning, people trying to find ways to really kickstart their business again.
That's great to hear, Mario. I've also been guilty of matching my mask to my outfit.
Carmen, can I just comment on Mario's point earlier?
Yes,
because
please.
I think he made a very important point around the support for SMEs. I think if we really look at this crisis, it is by far the group that is the hardest hit across the region. If you don't solve small business, I don't think you can actually solve for a real recovery. At least that's the viewpoint we have at Visa, which is why both in Hong Kong and Macau, actually across Asia Pacific, we've been pledging to support 10 million small businesses. And we've also identified what obviously their key pain points are at the moment. And it is obviously, how do they diversify their revenue stream? They're very dependent maybe on one revenue flow. How can they diversify that? How can they obviously reduce their costs? But also how can they retrain or reskill their employees and their employee well-being? So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of this has gone from bringing businesses from offline to online. So we've created kind of a starter kit, which is available in Macau as well as Hong Kong, for startups to help them, for SMEs to go online and to really have a quick session around, developing digital skills and making it easier for them to sell online. But also we have been trying to collaborate with other parties in the market, be it the Tourism Bureau, the governments, and other players, and in particular also startups that have been coming up with new ideas and innovation to bring to the market and to help support the growth of these SMEs. And I think that's really incredibly important, on the one hand, that we continue to learn and continue to innovate, but also it's all around collaboration. And I think the success of all of this is really making sure that we wrap our arms around the ones that really need it and try and collectively look at solutions to bring these businesses forward.
Micah, that must be a real challenge to try and bring small businesses, you know, family-run businesses that have been going for generations, to bring them online. How difficult is that? I'm really fascinated.
Well, on the one hand, it's difficult, but it's also, to be honest, it's been quite a great experience. And again, I think that's where technology also comes into play. And I'll use the example of Macau as well. So obviously, we were talking earlier about heritage tourism. And even though we don't want to track people exactly where they're going, but we do know roughly what kind of areas or shops people spend in. So we've been able to show some of these small merchants competitive data to say, you know, if you actually have a digital payment capability, we can actually create a bigger audience for you. So on the one hand, you don't just have to sell in Macau, but you can actually sell your egg tarts or your tea to global people. People might have come to Macau, and you mentioned it earlier, I love the city, and you might be craving for something local. You can actually have it sent over. But on the other hand, we can also show them through data that, you know, the traffic that can go through their stores by just having more of a digital and e-com engagement. And it's been really fascinating because particularly the second and third generation of a lot of these small businesses are quite keen to look at innovating. And they want to keep the heritage and they want to keep the history alive, but they also want to continue to grow the family business. We've launched in Hong Kong and Macau a campaign which is Support Small. And this is really about, refinding and finding the love for your local community and your local shops and your local stores, and supporting a lot of these family-run businesses through this crisis. And it's actually been really great to connect with those people and see how excited they are about doing something different.
That's great. And does this go hand in hand with sustainability? Helena, you mentioned that at the height of the tourism in Macau, you were getting 16,000 tourists a day.
More than that.
Wow, that's amazing. But now you've got a lot less next to you. Probably single digits, right, of true international tourists coming to Macau. So what about sustainability? Because I know sustainability was a priority before COVID. Is this still a priority, or is it more difficult to implement, or are you just looking to get bums on seats?
I guess right now, well, even when we reopen for tourism business or reopen for business per se, people would be more, I would say particularly the local residents, they would be also looking at how to balance making sure that there is a confidence in terms of keeping the destination safe, whilst at the same time doing businesses. So the way that people look at business, the way that people look at how to do business would be quite different from before. And even visitors would have concerns would have health concerns if they don't feel your destination safe. So the messages going out would need to also very much combine with, how safe your destination is, particularly in terms of the very difficult to control virus. So that's one. At the same time, I totally agree with what Micah was saying. The digitalization seems to be the buzzword nowadays, because that helps in terms of digital health codes. That helps also in terms of people being able to spend their money, even though they need to stay at home, and they can get their supplies, they can get, at least, sufficient, or be able to work from a safe environment. So, and particularly with this episode of COVID-19, because our government, when we're handing out what we call, the subsidies for people to spend, because the government has also been giving out subsidies, we have done that digitally. So now even the youngest kids or to the eldest, people in Macau, they would know how to use a digital payment system. So that has been one of the things that have come out of the situation as well. And we've also launched a lot of tools to help people to work from home or to learn from home. So I guess, there's always a silver lining. Now it's just how do we harness that and how do we do that, for the sustainable development of the destination. So going forwards, definitely people are not looking at big numbers. People are looking at how do we serve our clients differently, safely, and also responsibly.
Great.
Carmen.
Yes, Mario.
Yeah, sorry, if you allow me, I'd like to just add a few points to what Elena just actually shared, specifically around innovations in digital. One of the things that actually I'm excited about during this crisis, there's not much to be excited about, but there is one thing, which is actually the exponential development of technologies. A lot of the technologies that we're talking about today that actually are being implemented faster than what we thought is because of the current situation. So when we were talking about touchless check-in at hotels, digital payment has been accelerated, as Mike had mentioned before, having robotics in public places and etc., assisting shoppers or travelers in different airports. And artificial intelligence, drone deliveries, and all of these that we're talking about before are now actually being accelerated. They're actually coming much faster. So I think that this is actually quite an interesting development. But it actually also presents enormous amount of challenges moving forward, because we have so many people who are employed in travel and tourism now that have either lost their employment and potentially could lose it for permanently moving forward if many of these technologies are being implemented earlier than what we expected. So we knew these technologies were coming. The industry was hopefully getting prepared for this and retraining and reskilling people. But now we need to do that in a much, much faster way because they are actually being implemented at an earlier stage than what we expected. So I think the industry also needs to look at how do we reskill the staff that we have. We could end up potentially in this situation for far longer than we wish and we hope for. And looking at the trends over the last couple of weeks and et cetera, it doesn't look that positive for the next 6 to 12 months. And so I think everyone will now be looking at possibly jobs in other sectors. And as we start to grow again, are we going to have sufficient people to get back into these jobs moving forward? So there's great opportunities, but also great challenges ahead of us.
Yeah. Carmen, do you mind if I respond to Mario? Because I think you mentioned a great point. And just coming back to your question around sustainability and adding to Mario's point around the concern of the digitization and what it might do to the industry. I think if we look at sustainability at Visa, it's a huge priority for us. And it's really around economic, social, and environmental footprint. So, I mean, we have a plastic-free, single-use things in our office. We have 100% renewable electricity for our offices and data centers. But actually our social responsibility, I think, is very important. And to Mario's point, as we move more into a digitized world, it is very important that on the one hand, people are financially literate so that they, just prepare for any kind of change that comes, but also digitally literate. And I think that's where the haves and the have-nots going forward will be really important, and particularly for the travel industry. How many people can we actually retrain and reskill? So we're doing a lot around making sure that this kind of unbanked or underserved segment in Asia Pacific is actually becoming more not just financially literate so that they can actually engage better in society, but also that digital literacy is super important for the future to ensure that people are not left behind. And that retraining and reskilling, I think, is going to be super interesting and important. If I could just also respond to Elena, when she spoke earlier about the challenges around providing a sustainable ongoing experience. I think what our research has also seen, that people worry about security and safety, but also privacy is becoming very important as part of this pandemic. So what's interesting is that people want to be very sustainable and have a greater sense of calm and peacefulness and go to off the beaten track and nature destinations. But that quite often also means, more unsustainable ways of traveling there. So I think that's going to be a conundrum that's going to be hanging over the industry going forward. So how do we solve for, on the one hand, more privacy and more tailor-made experiences, but on the other hand, also making sure that they are sustainable and support our climate and our environment?
Yes, that's really interesting, Micah, because private jet travel has really taken off in this pandemic. And it'll be interesting to see how that goes forward, because this leads us nicely into one of the audience questions. Sharim Karim, I hope I've pronounced this properly, is asked, how long do you think until the international airlines will be back to business as normal? Oh, gosh, that's a very, very big question. Elena or Mario, Micah, does anyone have any answers? I don't, gosh.
I can, Elena, you can comment maybe about Macau, with Air Macau being the only carrier, but out of Macau. But the international flights, that there's already some flights. I mean, Qatar Airways has been flying throughout, although very diminished number of flights. Qantas has announced they will not fly until mid next year, 2021, which is quite drastic. Other airlines like Emirates do have flights at the moment. Finnair and many other carriers around the world do have some flights. But the complexity around this is actually putting these aircraft back in the air is actually not that simple. Because first, where do you fly them? What are the restrictions currently, in the respective destinations? If one country says they will allow X amount of people coming in every day, well, and they don't allow people out of the country, well, essentially you're flying aircraft, half full one way and practically empty on the other way back. It's not financially sustainable for a carrier to do that. So I would hate to be working for an airline today. I've worked for an airline before for a long time, but and I've managed different crises, but nothing like this one. And it's a nightmare trying to figure out where you put your aircraft, where you position them, what fee you're going to charge to be able to sustain the business moving forward. We as users, as travelers, I'm now a traveler not working for the airline, have to pay for the flights and etc. And I have a certain tolerance to excessive cost. If the airline says I'm going to increase the price by X, that might be acceptable. If they double the price or triple the price in order to compensate for the lack of passengers, well, that's not going to work out. And I had personally to go to that situation a few weeks ago when I was trying to repatriate my son back to France from the UK, where the airlines were charging 5 times more than what they would normally do. And it was just not, I didn't have a choice, but I can do that once. I'm not going to do that for leisure.
Yeah, I think in Hong Kong, we also have the airlines actually flying in and out, which is great. But to Elena's point, I think a big question between, is it more economic to carry a cargo or to take passengers? And I think on the passenger side, big question of, everybody wanting to go out and go travel. So do we have leisure travel versus business travel? And I think some of the research has also shown that there are changes in behaviors of people about their desire to to travel going forward. It's interesting if you look at the China market, for example. You've seen the spend of cars has gone up because people prefer to actually go road tripping and using their car to go on holiday instead of using maybe domestic flights. So it'd be very interesting to see the behavior that we've seen post-COVID, whether that will stay longer or just for the shorter period of time post-recovery. But it's a very difficult question to answer, Carmen.
Yes, I know. I've also been doing a lot of car journeys this year, that's for sure. I'm about to do a train journey this week, but even then that was a big decision to get on a Shinkansen. So it's really interesting. I'd like to open up the floor for everyone to send in some questions if you would like, for our panelists on the question and answer. But also previously I'd asked the panelists if they had any questions for each other. So Helena, do you have any questions for Micah or Mario?
Well, not really a question. I would say that, obviously coming out of this crisis, we're still, in the midst of the, for a lot of people in different parts of the world, they're in different stages of the crisis. I guess the lesson is really to learn is, people need to stick together in very difficult times. And also, I guess the question is how well we are able to innovate and how well we're able to shift our business ways to what we call the new normal, because things would not be the same as before. Until we develop a vaccine, I don't think people will be very will be like before, just travel anywhere, anytime, because travel becomes a very big decision nowadays. It's not just something that you do just over a weekend, which we used to do. I guess that it would be very, very interesting to maybe eventually PATA or Visa or whoever can come up with some research to see what are the new trends and what are people looking for, coming out of COVID-19, in terms of traveling, because that would definitely impact, everybody and not just one or two destinations.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's you hit the hammer on the nail, Elena. I think what we really need to understand is how visitors travelers are thinking about their future travel. And if we can understand that behavior, then I think we also have a better line of sight around, should we prepare for travel bubbles that are, short haul, long haul, purpose driven, task driven? Is it leisure? Is it business? I think those are going to be very interesting questions that are going to be answered over the coming months, I'm sure.
Yes, Mario, has PATA done any preliminary research or data collection on this? Have new trends in travel emerged?
We've done some survey quite early in the crisis, back in March, April, specifically actually in China, in mainland China, where we wanted to get a sense of the desire for people to still travel overseas. Which was actually, I guess, not totally a surprise for all of us who are based here in Asia, that there's an immense desire for Chinese citizens to travel overseas. They do want to get out as soon as borders are opening, and which is a good news, that the desire and the sense of traveling, of adventure and experiences is still very much there. When it will start, I don't know yet. Some of the other surveys that were conducted by some of our members also indicated that there's a great desire, sorry, Elena, for people to travel to green destinations, to escape into nature, not necessarily to go in crowded environment and crowded places, but essentially trying to escape into nature-based destinations. And this is actually kind of the interest in general from people. Doesn't mean that actually people will not be interested by heritage sites or cities, However, they will be paying a lot of attention to the protocols that are in place to ensure their safety in these respective destination cities like Hong Kong, Macau, or Singapore, for example, which has also been very popular destinations for people to go on a holiday. So it's a mix of different things, but I think the safety protocols will be critical. Nature-based, yes, there's a tendency for that, at least for the moment. Will it last? I don't know. Certainly, if I just take my own personal situation, with living in an high-rise tower in the 24th floor in the city of Bangkok, I'm just dying to get out of the city and go and explore and go either to a beach or mountain or anything except the city, which I will be doing in a few days' time. Yay! But will I be looking for city destinations in the future? Yes, yeah, most certainly. But I will pay more attention to health protocols, and I think that's probably the same trends that we've seen from the various research we've done. I do have a question for Elena. So sorry to put you on the spot, but before COVID, you actually shared with me and with PATA members that Macau was actually looking at transforming itself and focusing on not only on its heritage, but also on gastronomy and diversifying its source of revenues through other activities than what we know Macau for. How does that, did COVID-19 change your point of view of what you want to do moving forward? Or are you looking at different ways of diversifying Macau?
Yeah, I guess in the case of Macau, heritage will still continue because we have got UNESCO World Heritage. On the other side, we've also got UNESCO branding as city of gastronomy, creative city of gastronomy. So that's why food has always been and continues to be and will be more important going forwards. So what we've been doing so far is instead of having people, obviously we can't run courses right now for, physically for people to learn how to do, different kinds of Macanese food. But we have also done some online learning videos for people to actually learn how to cook when they're, when they're staying at home, or when you cannot come to Macau and eat in the restaurants. At least you can try your hand at doing something at home, wherever you are in the world. Recently, with the local tours, another area which has become very, very, I would say, very conducive to luring people to join these tours, are the workshops that we, teach people how to bake cookies, do Portuguese egg tarts, and very soon we will also launch another route with, one part of the routing would be, learning how to do those very, very elaborate things with your coffee, those kinds of coffee art and things like that, so it's, yes, these kinds of things seem to be very, very conducive to luring people to come out of their homes and going to tours, because simply said, they don't want just, to look at things or to see sites, but they also want to learn something and get some different experience out of their tours. So I believe that, in the future, that's the way to go. You need to give them an experience, of your destination in different ways, maybe thinking out of the box more. And then travel won't be the same.
You can sign me up for the coffee art classes, Elena. And then I know for those of you who are interested, I know that Macau is actually sponsoring later on this week a cooking class. So if you're interested in the Macanese food, do join us for that experience later on. So back to you, Carmen.
But I think it's fantastic, Elena, because it's also what we are seeing. People want personalized, unique, tailor-made, value-added experience, and I think one of the other things that is probably going to happen going forward, and as I already mentioned it earlier, is around purpose-driven tourism. So finding experiences where people can support their local community, can do volunteer work, can do preservation or conservation work. I think it will be the next level of experiences that people are looking for.
Great.
Yes, definitely. We've got a question from Scott Thoreau. When do you think the affluent US traveler will return to Hong Kong and Macau? Or do you think they'll be welcome? Because I get the feeling from, you know, various articles and newspapers that I've read in Japan that, you know, particularly with the Olympics, I don't really think the Japanese public and community want people with such high COVID numbers like America to come back, despite how affluent they are. What do you think? What's the consensus on the ground? I guess let's start with you, Helena.
Well, as I said just now, it's not just up to the tourism department to decide exactly, okay, these are the tourists I would like to lure, or which markets I'd like to work on. Because simply said, you know, you have to work very much with your health authority, because they are the ones who decide exactly who comes in with or without quarantine measures. So if there are 14-day quarantine measures, simply said, you know, that's no point, you know, doing any work in that particular market for a certain period of time. So it would very, very much be also not just driven by the tourism department. It would be also a very close working relationship that we have to develop with the health you know, authorities worldwide. So I would say that, you know, it's not so much which market you want, it's really which markets are available.
Yes, and Mario, what have you been seeing with these travel bubbles? I guess that's the buzzword right now. Who's going to do a travel bubble with who? What factors are at play? Have you been privy to this information on who decides who, and is it dependent on COVID numbers?
There's been a lot of discussion, so there's not a single day where we're not asked to comment on travel bubbles or green corridors or whatever terminology is actually used for this. And in principle, they sound like really good ideas. But the implications of putting these corridors or bubbles together is actually quite complex. It's a question of having trust and confidence that the number of cases in the respective destinations are under control, either COVID-free, preferably, if not in very, very good control. And do they have the proper testing at departures and arrivals? Do they have the right protocols? Are people wearing their mask in public places, and et cetera? The healthcare system in the respective destination, is there a level of trust in the respective countries of the health ministries that both the citizens, residents, and the travelers or visitors in the respective destinations will be taken care of respectively? So there's a lot of measures actually need to be put in place before a travel corridor in a bubble is accepted. The other thing that I like to bring up also, which I've brought up in many webinars over the last few weeks, which very few people actually talk about, is actually travel insurance. Because at the moment, there are actually very, very few insurance, practically none, that will actually cover travelers, as long as the WTO, the World Health Organization, WHO, recognized this as a pandemic. Most travel insurance will not cover travelers as they travel overseas. And I'm not only talking about you being covered for being affected by COVID, you actually tripping down the stairs and breaking your leg and actually not being covered by your insurance during that period of time. So there are some exceptions. I know some insurance that I've offered limited coverage and for a period of time. But again, if you think about business travel, we at PATA, our staff, including myself, are not covered by our insurance to travel anywhere at the moment. So even if Elena invited me to go and visit tomorrow, it is very unlikely that I will go because I'm not covered. If I did go, it would be on leisure at my own risk and not actually being covered by the organization. So this is another factor which the industry hasn't really dealt with, which is actually really critical to move forward because very few people will be willing to take that risk of being either stuck somewhere because borders are getting closed again and you're not able to come back, and potentially being stuck there for quite some time, having to pay for your hotels and meals and etc. Or worse, getting actually sick or getting injured.
Yes, gosh, we haven't even touched on insurance. It must be a nightmare. Micah, what's been the situation with visa? Is that the case as well? Have you had those sorts of bureaucratic challenges to overcome?
Well, I think for now we are very happy and comfortable staying in Hong Kong. Unfortunately, we are going through a third wave at the moment, so we're all going to go into a smaller kind of confinement for the coming week to see whether we can contain it. But I think Mario mentioned it earlier already. It's around the safety. In order to ensure that we open up in the proper way, there needs to be a health and safety protocol that is agreed between all the different kind of countries. And, you know, it will be a question of the situational alignment at that point in time, because I think Hong Kong was a great case in point. We were expecting to very quickly actually open with Macau, and unfortunately we are now, you know, in a bit of a setback, and this is obviously what is happening around the globe, unfortunately. So yeah, at the moment we just have to play by ear and be agile and flexible and have a bit of a growth mindset and take it on a week by week basis.
Okay, well, we've almost run out of time. Do we have any more questions from the audiences, or if Helena, Mario, or Micah, would you like to say any last thoughts?
Well, firstly, I very much enjoyed this panel, and thank you so much, PATA, for having me. It was very insightful because it kind of confirmed my views that in order to get out of this, it is really around collaboration and innovation. And we really have to think differently about partnerships and the way we have previously worked, as well as looking at new and different creative solutions to evolve out of this recovery, and then from there on into the new normal. So thank you, Carmen, for hosting. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I've equally enjoyed the session today. I've lost count of how many webinars I've been actually participating since early March. It's probably in a few hundreds by now already. Even though we have a feeling sometimes we keep repeating ourselves with the same stories, there's always something new that comes out in each of the discussions, as it did today. So get inspiration by communicating with other people, not only within our sector specifically, Visa being more of a financial institution, but also working in and for the service of the travel industry, and getting new thoughts and new ways of looking at things is actually really critical. I think the last part I would say is that, to give it hopefully a bit of encouragement to everyone, because it's hard to get some these days, is that we have to learn to live with this current pandemic and situation. We're going to be in this for a very long time. And so we have to find ways to move forward. And I'm quite confident that we're a resilient industry. Humans are resilient. We will find solutions to move forward. Yes, there will be a period of uncertainty, and protocols will be different from one place to another, some confusions and etc. They will normalize over a period of time. I'm confident that within the next 6 to 12 months, we will actually find ways to normalize our protocols to allow us to travel. And yes, it will be different. It will not be as it was before. Moving forward, travel will be different, will be challenging for a period of time, but we will be able to travel again, and I look forward to it.
Helena, any last thoughts?
Well, I have throughout these few months, I've learned to expect the unexpected, every day. So yes, it is. It is a learning curve every day, I guess, for everybody around the world. So it's just keep a positive attitude, and also work out solutions, well, one step at a time. You can't make very, very long-term plans at this point in time. So it's really making sure that you keep it, count the positives, and also, try to learn, one day at a time.
Yes, and I think it's great to have a forum like this that focuses on the positives and the progress that's been made, because people in this time where we're getting on to 6 months and post 6 months in a pandemic, you know, people can get very downhearted and almost depressed at the state of play. But, you know, it's great to hear about all these technological advancements, the new training that's being done with old time tourism businesses that are now progressing into, you know, more technological advancements. But at the same time, we're seeing that travel and tourism is getting back to nature, going back to basics, getting in touch with local communities, which is great to see. But all at the same time, we're trying to save the small and medium businesses. So this is a really challenging time for the travel and tourism industry. So thank you very much for all our panelists, Helena and Micah and Mario. Thank you for stepping in at the last minute.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll hand you back to
Thank
Paul
you.
now.
Thank you much once again to Helena, Micah, and Mario, especially Mario for jumping in last minute. And of course, thank you very much to Carmen. You've been with us for what, 3 weeks already? So thank you so much for all your work. You've been fantastic. You guys can all turn off your audios and visual, and I'll just do a quick wrap up. So thank you once again. So as I wrap this up here, let me just, I want to once again thank all of our speakers from the Macao Government Tourism Office, who is also our destination partner for this week. Unfortunately, UNWTO wasn't able to join us today, so Mara had to step in. But as you know, it's very early there. Of course, I'd like to thank Visa for also joining us and Mike for joining us. Also, like to thank Carmen and everyone at BBC. BBC has been a very fantastic partner. You know, it's been great working with them. And with that, I just want to also remind all of you that we actually have another session with BBC. This is part of BBC's Insider Series. This will be happening on Thursday at 3 p.m. It'll be a fantastic session. There's 2 panel discussions. One will be with a panel discussion between the BBC experts. Then there's a second panel discussion with the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, Japan Airlines, Accor, BBC, and I'll be moderating that. So please do join it. My team has put the link to register in the chat. So please do join us that day on Thursday. And with that, I also want to thank all of you guys for actually joining us as well. Those of you who joined here on Zoom and those of you who joined on Facebook. Feel free to share the video on Facebook with your friends and colleagues. Just wanted to remind you that we have a meet and greet session right after this. The link is also in the chat. I know Mario will be there. I know Helena will be there. Hopefully maybe Carmen or Mikey might drop in as well. But feel free to drop in. It's not only an opportunity to meet the speakers, but also to meet some of the other attendees that have joined the Dream to Travel Festival. You can just exchange stories, tips and tricks, or you know what's happening around the region. So please do join the meet and greet session that's happening right after this. Also want to keep you aware of, we do have a virtual bingo game and giveaway later this afternoon. It's at 3 p.m. It's bingo, it's fun. I know we've been giving away some great prizes that have been sponsored by MGTO. I know yesterday we gave a flight, a hotel room, and a tour. That was all just one prize. So yes, I don't know what the prize is this afternoon, but it probably is something spectacular. So do join us for that session. And that is it. That's the end of the program. I will see you later today or at one of our other sessions later this week. Thank you and have a good rest of your day. Take care.